So the globe is marking World Toilet Day, and it's seen as an opportunity to intensify awareness and highlight the importance of toilets to health, hygiene and safety. World Toilet Day this year is being watched under the theme Toilets, a Place for Peace. And that promotes action to address the global sanitation crisis gripping the world. Let's get a better understanding of how bad it's looking and what we can do to fix it. Bring in our guest, Elmien Claassens, a lecturer with the Social Work and Criminology Department at the University of Pretoria. Elmien, it's lovely to see you. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us. No overstating just how important a day like this is, especially because of what the UN is saying about the crisis. I mean, what stood out for me amongst the grim statistics is that about 1,000 children under the age of 5 years are predicted to be dying daily because of poor sanitation. This is really bad.
Yeah, you know what, Ayanda, I think the situation globally is horrific, but I think the problem locally is actually just as bad. In our schools, those 1,000 children daily, our children in South Africa in schools are just as affected. And that grabbed my attention as a social worker.
Absolutely. And we know that, well, we'll get to the solutions in just a moment. Let's just get a better understanding of the problem first. Government has made promises for as long as I can remember. And we know that in 2013, the minimum uniform norms and standards for public school infrastructure actually, made a decision, or at least made it clear that pit toilets should be eradicated from our schools. And we're still finding in 2024 that that hasn't happened.
Yeah, Ayanda, that was 2013. It's 11 years later, and we're still sitting with 3,900 pit toilets as an estimate in our schools, which is, the promise is made for 2025 that all toilets will be replaced with flushing toilets. But looking back over the 11 years, I'm not completely convinced if they're really taking it as serious.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question of whether or not there's enough political will to actually get this through. I mean, I've heard the newly appointed Basic Education Minister, Siviwe Kwahube, saying this is amongst her priority. I think she said something along the lines of it keeps her up at night, but she's got quite the work ahead of her. What will it take, Elmien, to finally get through to this? I mean, from the work you've been able to do, what are you finding are typically the stumbling blocks?
Yeah, so Ayanda, I think what stands out for me is partnerships. We need to partner between public sector, private sector, civil society, even non-profits are partnering to actually address the problem. So I think the problem is bigger than only Department of Health. They can't fix it alone. We've seen that over 11 years, but I think partnerships is key. And the University of Pretoria is actually also, many of our students are involved in community engagement projects to address the problem. So even partnerships between higher education and schools, we're trying our best. But I really believe that partnerships is a big key to the solution.
And as you speak about the work being done by UP, I wonder to what extent that kind of capacity is being taken up by the state. In other words, are you finding that the department is leaning into those partnerships and making sure that they're able to leverage as much of that help as they can?
Yeah, I think Ayanda, they don't have a choice because their own capacity is so limited. So I think they're forced, which is not a bad thing. I'm very for that, and I think civil society and the public sector can really play a big part. There's great initiatives that are really happening out there. Breadline, there's several public benefit organizations that's established especially to address this. So I think we are all equally responsible to find a solution. It's not just a single-handed responsibility of the Department of Education. That's my opinion.
Fair enough. And, a lot of attention, of course, is on the bricks and mortar, right, when we speak about World Toilet Day. But my goodness, not having proper sanitation has such a ripple effects on mostly children's lives, at least in a country like ours. We know that girls, for example, can't go to school if there aren't proper toilets, especially around that time of the month when they go through the menstrual cycle.
Yeah, Ayanda, it's actually estimated, there was a study by the Stellenbosch University Hospital that estimated that 30% of teenage girls are experiencing what they call period poverty, which means for the 5 days during a teenage girl's period, she's not able to go to school because it's not just the pit toilet that's the problem, the washing of hands, the hygiene that goes with it. Those girls are missing out on education because of lack of sanitation and clean water. And that for me as a social justice advocate is just an injustice too great for society to keep quiet.
Absolutely. I mean, 5 days a month, that's about 60 days a year. That's about more than a month in a year where these children aren't able to get an education. That certainly sounds like an injustice to me as well. And of course, the ripple effect is that psychologically this might do something to them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You can imagine, so you're missing out on 60 days of school, so you're falling behind, which means that you can't keep up even academically, but psychologically, emotionally, it all has a toll on our children. And I think in a very unequal society, this for me is one of the aspects that we can address by just fixing the pit toilets. I think it's not even such a difficult thing to fix. So there is solutions. That's the good news.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we're able to get to those solutions sooner than later. The theme this year is a place for peace. As I thought about that theme in preparation for our interview today, I thought to myself, I've never really thought of, a toilet as a place for peace. But peace is exactly what I'm looking for if I'm ever going to use that kind of facility.
Yeah, imagine the worth and dignity, the feeling of safety. If you are feeling unsafe in a abolition environment, imagine what it does to you. So I can actually associate with a place of peace that a safe toilet can provide children with a safe environment. Imagine you're a small child and you just see this big hole. Imagine your fear, and children are saying we're fearful of falling into that pit. And imagine the undignified death that children are faced with by using those toilets. It will keep me awake at night as well.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Elmien Claassens, so much to think about just these particular facilities. Hopefully, as you mentioned, we'll get to those solutions soon. Elmien Claassens is a lecturer in the Department of Social Work and Criminology with the University of Pretoria. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. We appreciate it indeed.